First of all, thank you for the invitation. I think it's an amazing event, and the team of the festival is doing a great job. And today we had also the first day of our workshop, and I'm very excited, and I'm curious to see the outcome. So my name is Lera, and I'm from Fala Atelier. We are a small Portuguese office. We are based in Porto. This is actually the office, if I'm not mistaken, is 5 years old, more or less. And the office was actually started, at this very space. This is the tiny capsule of the Nakajin Tower in Japan. And back then, Philip and Anna, they were living there, and it was just a matter of creating a website because they were just doing competitions. And I like this image because here, you can already see, the first hints from the office. You can already see the wall that is covered with these, images and references. In the beginning it was Philip and Anna, they are Portuguese. Then a few months later, Ahmed, who is from Switzerland, he joined them. And then I joined the office 4 years ago. I came there to do my internship, but then it was, it was sort of a match, and then I stayed there and I never left. So this was one of our first competitions. It was a library, and although it's a very naive collage, I think in a way this was also, it was like the very first, clue, the very first attempt to define what is Fala, what is the office. Back then, let's say Portugal did not have a lot of competitions for let's say young architects to offer. So we were working on some competitions in Switzerland, and this was also a funny exercise because we sort of did these competitions knowing that we will lose, because at some point you start this project knowing that you need to be rational and it has to be serious, but then at the same time at some point some crazy idea kicks in, and then you just want to do this project, and you know that you will never win, but then you are excited, and you are as excited as you can be. This is our office at the moment, and it's a very chaotic space. I mean, you can see the mess. You can see all the laptops, the wires, the books, the glasses that are there. It's a tiny room in the very city center, and we are 8 people at the moment. And although this space is clearly it's extremely uncomfortable, and it's too small for this amount of people. And if 2 people are talking on the phone, and I'm trying to to write a text, then it's never going to happen. And you cannot bring also a client to this office, to have a meeting, and then there is this blue curtain in the back trying to hide all the mess that is there. But I think at the same time, it's a nice moment right now because we are still quite small, and there is no hierarchy at the office, I would say, and we still have this chance to have the discussion, all of us together around this table, and then everybody can, in a way, keep the track of what's going on there. So it's kind of a family, so it's a very nice atmosphere. And this image is, in a way, a metaphor of what's going on right now at the office. Not right now, but what was going on there back then, a few years ago, when we had 0 commissions, when it was just about doing the competitions. So it was it was an imaginary, like this fictitious kind of world based on on the references that we had, on our obsessions and fascinations, and then we started to have our first commissions. A bit of out of nowhere, and this was the first exhibition that we did in Lisbon, and it was also let's say a curatorial kind of statement, because this exhibition was based on this experience of living in Japan, and it was in Lisbon. It was 2 rooms that were filled with scaffolding and some images that they took. Then we had, let's say, the the next phase, the next step, which was some apartment renovations. And I think it's important to say that in our office, let's say we believe that good architecture does not have the scale. Let's say we would dedicate, I don't know, as much love and time and attention to designing an apartment or a birdhouse as we would dedicate to, designing a house or a residential block. So for us, it's really about, having these ideas and again obsessions, and trying to implement them and to see how it can work. Then the next step, this project is sort of an apartment renovation also, but in this case it's a bit more crazy because it was, let's say, an open-minded couple in Lisbon, and they wanted to buy a place, but then they realized that the prices are already way too high, so they ended up buying a garage, and we designed a garage house for them, sort of. The next phase, which is also, this is still an ongoing process, is this story about the Airbnb apartments, because right now Porto is, it's just filled with tourists, they keep coming, and it's a popular way to, let's say, invest money in Portugal nowadays, because there are so many people buying buildings, and then it's like an easy way to transform this into a set of apartments, and you can always sell it, and then they just, they keep buying them, they keep doing this, and it's kind of a machine now. And for us, it's a condition that is, I don't know, weird and extremely nice at the same time. Weird because we are in a situation when we need to work with the same typology, let's say, every day. So it's a challenge because we don't want to repeat ourselves, and let's say it's an exercise of on how to let's say change the way you live today, maybe, because this is the kind of no home condition when everybody's just traveling all the time. And it is also weird because we are in a situation when there is no client. There is just this figure of investor, and he's not interested in any, I don't know, in any discussion about beauty or space or whatever, and he just wants, he or she, they just want to sell the project, and that's it. But at the same time, it's nice because we have the freedom also to to try things that maybe most of the clients would say no to. So for us, it's sort of this this opportunity to make a lot of tests and to try a lot of things. Then we are starting to have some other typologies. It's getting more and more diverse, I would say. This was one of our first houses. It is still a renovation, but in this case we actually had a client, so this was already an improvement. And again, it was a lot of struggling because with the client it's also about trying to educate them in a way, try to escape the endless set of images from Pinterest that they want you to do for them, and then you need to to adapt and adjust. So it's also a funny kind of struggle. This is the same project but from the outside. And right now, this lecture is maybe a bit chaotic because I don't want to really talk about projects one by one. I think it's more about trying to talk about Fala on different levels, let's say, to maybe discuss themes and I don't know, obsessions that we have at the moment, just to describe the way how we work, and also to talk a bit about the context that we are facing now in Porto. So it's a little bit of everything, so let's see how it works. Now I'm going to talk about a few projects, and in this case I want to talk about, let's say, maybe the idea of architecture as a language, because I think we are now at the office, we are at the point when we have enough projects to have this body of work, let's say, because we have all of them, and we have a chance to to look at them side by side, and we are a bit obsessed with this idea of archiving and cataloging. So we always do all the images and drawings in the same format, and then we have them on the wall all the time, and it helps us to keep the track of of the elements that are there, of all the themes that are appearing here and there, but also in a different way. So it's in a way it's a self-centered kind of research, but at the same time it's extremely helpful, and you can see how we evolve in a way, and how we maybe gaining a bit more freedom every time. So yeah, talking about this project, this is the house that I was showing before. It's this one, and in this case, it was a house for a woman, so a single person, and the task here was basically to find, the way to separate private programs like bedroom and small storage spaces from the public ones, living, dining, and kitchen. And in this case, we did it by simply introducing this curved wall, which is sort of defining the main space. And yeah, at the office we're also very much obsessed, or we, let's say it's also one of our little researches to always draw the main space of every single project, because I think it's a very relevant element of every project. And in this case, the main space is the intersection of two geometries, let's say. There is the curved wall, and then there is the sloped roof, which is very present also in the outside expression of the building. And then it's just about introducing a few more elements into this play. Then it's about placing and choosing the proportion of these 4 blue doors. Then it's also the round window that is there. Then there is the thin metal column, here, which is a bit off-centered, and this is, let's say, a way to establish a certain spatial hierarchy. So, yeah, and we are also very careful, I would say, in a way. We design inner elevations, let's call them inner elevations, and for us, this wall is also like a little facade, so we are paying a lot of attention to the, let's say, the composition and the disposition of the elements inside the living space. And then the street facade, in this case, is also made from, let's say, very simple fragments. There is the blue door, then there is the white wall, which is sort of a background, and then we changed the proportion a bit, to make all the 3 distances equal. Then there is the pink door, there is the square window, and and the sloped rooftop, which is there, and which is very much defining, let's say, the image of the house. The next project is exploring a very different set of themes, I would say, and this one is a lot about defining the grid within the existing concrete structure. And this project is also very different because we are often dealing with these renovations which are in the city center, and in this case you just have the street facade and you have the back facade because the building is always in between 2 other blocks. But in this case it was a free-standing building, so we had finally these 4 elevations. And yeah, as I said, the geometry of the plan is very relevant here. So it's about defining the grid, having these 6 squares, and then dividing one of the squares into these 2 triangles, then introducing the curve, and then a little kink here to hide all the ventilation pipes and so on. And then the facade is sort of it's a consequence of the plan. In a way, it's also a very rigid kind of grid, and it's a repetition of this one double window. But then at the same time, we tried, this project was, let's say, also an exercise in economy of means, because the budget was extremely small, so we had to keep it, very minimal, and it was a lot about finishings and choosing the right materials, to make it sort of a noble kind of building. And yeah, in this case, although it's a grid and it's a repetition, for instance, when the window hits the corner, it never turns. There is a window on one side, and then there is the white wall on the other side, and then there is the cornice that is on top, and then the very simple elements such as the rain pipe. It's not in the corner, then it's not in the center, it's slightly off-centered, so it's also becoming part of this composition, let's say. And then on the inside, there's also this idea of having one continuous wall, which is it's the existing concrete structure, but then the white wall is sort of in the back, so it detaches from the structure that was already there. And then this rhythm of 6 rooms is there, these 6 blue doors, they sort of, they reflect the sequence of room that is behind it. And although you can never see this wall, because it's 2 different apartments, but we also have this idea that if the 2 doors are open, you can sort of read this continuous kind of space. This is one of our Airbnb projects, one of the many. And when it comes to this kind of typology, I think these projects, they have, let's say, two sides. One is about the inside space, and it's about basically designing one apartment, one unit, and then finding a way to repeat it 4 times, but then try and also to make these apartments, not looking the same in a way. And then it's also about, the street facade and the back facade. So it's also about finding the right outside expression for this project. And this project for us was, let's say, about creating a very abstract, very absolute, almost temple-like kind of space, because the initial building was quite tall and quite big. So the floor height in the room was like 4 meters, and the space when you go there, it was really impressive. And we didn't want to do any partitions. We didn't want to introduce any in-between levels. So we decided to keep it as it is. But at the same time, we needed to also, let's say, establish a certain division between the programs. Between living, dining, kitchen, and sleeping. And in this case, we did this by simply placing this, thin concrete column. And on the ground floor, it's actually a structural column. But then on the first floor, the column is it has no function, and it's just there as a totem, and it doesn't touch the ceiling. It's just there to mark the space. And and then all the life is sort of, evolving around this column, and then you can even see that the pattern rotates. And then again, you have a few elements, you have 2 blue doors, you have kitchen, you have some surfaces of tiles on the wall. Then it's a bit about finding these little details and exceptions. And in terms of facade expression, with the street one, which is this one, there is always not very much to do because of so many restrictions. So in this case, it was just about, covering the wall with this super studio kind of white tiles, and then introducing the 2 very tall doors. One is pink one, the other one is green one. But then the back facade. The back facade is, let's say, the very idea, the theme of these back facades. It's also, I think, right now is kind of a theme in the office because we have already a few of them, and it's funny to look at them side by side because when it comes to facades, I think we are very much following our intuition, and I think we almost design them as paintings. And in this case, the facade has a weird outline because there was the granite wall that was already there. Then there is the line of white tiles that is following this garden wall. Then you have 2 square windows. You have this little kink on top, which is also there because we try to follow the height of neighbors. And then again, the rain pipe comes into play to become an element that unbalances this composition in a way. This is another Airbnb project, and this one is, let's say, it's a crazy, very formal kind of chapter in our portfolio because this project was done right after we finished another one, which was the opposite of this one, which was very, pragmatic and rational, very normal. So we decided, to turn 90 degrees and go the other way. And in this case, we, let's say, introduced this idea of vocabulary or grammar, let's say, when every room is made out of this every room has this set of elements, which are the curved wall in this case, the green door, the pink door, then this stepped kind of surface, and the stripy floor. And then it was about combining these elements in a different way so that with the same ingredients, you get a different kind of space every time. And the back facade here, it was actually our first built back facade, so we wanted, in a way, to make it glorious, let's say, and the back facade was demolished, and we built a new concrete wall, which was one level taller than it was supposed to be, and then we, then we treated this surface with this very noisy kind of pattern that was made with white, green, and black marble. And then again, there is the curvy handrail and the circle, which is sort of a cherry on top of this composition, and then there is also the invisible door, which is hidden within this marble pattern. This is the project with the same, it's the same type of building, but this project is very relevant because it's a different kind of program. In this case, we also had a client, and it was a family this time. And it's the same, it's the same kind of scale, but in this case, it was not about designing these 4 apartments. It was about dividing the public program and the private program between these 2 levels. And the 2 levels, they have very different spatial logic. If the ground floor has this open plan, and you already recognize the curved wall, which is one of the elements that keeps reappearing in our projects. And in this case, it's separating the little storage spaces and bathrooms and staircases. But then the top floor is a lot about these complex geometries, and this complexity, it actually comes, from the necessity, because the building was really narrow, and it was a challenge, to place all the bedrooms there, and you needed to make space to simply put the bed there, and then you try to find a way to introduce the rooftop window that goes all the way to the ground floor. Then you try to make the 2 bathrooms come together, and in the end it's a really complex set of spaces. And on top of this, you have this also grid of wooden beams that is sort of colliding with the whole system. So it's a very let's say messy set of geometries. And then the back facade and the front facade, in this case, they share the same language, I would say, and the back facade is also a reflection of the inside space of the program that is happening there. You see that the ground floor is this one big window, then you have the solid white wall that is hiding the bedroom, let's say, and then the unnecessary tall cornice on top, which is also hiding the roof, and it sort of represents, this sloped roof that is behind it. This is the project as it is now, more or less. It's now being built, and we are also we sort of like to do these images that are it's taken from the same viewpoint, just to make sure that it sort of matches the collage that we produced in the beginning, just to make sure that that it's going the right way, let's say. This is the back facade that I was showing before. The project is also almost finished, and you can see the relation with the neighbor, and in this case we paint the wall in blue also to make the clear distinction, and and you see this line of tiles that goes all the way. This is the inside space of this project. So right now it's still very incomplete. But here in the collage, you can see the, let's say again, the collision of all the walls and the surfaces. There is the curved wall that is intersected by the sloped roof, and then there is also the wooden beam that is sort of, colliding with the system. And sometimes it even looks like mistake, but I think we enjoy these little mistakes and these complexities, because I think they add, let's say, certain richness to the space. This is the space I was also showing before. The one of the Airbnb projects with the concrete column in the middle. Then there is another layer, let's say, of work that we are doing. This is the teaching part, and for us, teaching is also a lot about the research, because the teaching, let's say it's an opportunity to sort of study themes that you're interested in, but like there is never time actually to do this when you're at the office. And at the same time, we also gain a lot of experience by learning from students. Then there is the layer of exhibitions, which is also let's say a research part, and this was the biennial in Chicago, and in this case the project was about design, not designing, but we did a model of these 9 our favorite Japanese houses from 70s, and we did this little models. It was sort of the negative of the main space, so this is again the idea of this main space, and yeah, the point here was that these 9 houses, they could almost be the same house, because when we were looking at them side by side, they start to blur a bit, and there are so many similarities between them. This is another exhibition in Panama, and this one was about collages, and it was also a nice study, to simply see all of them side by side. This is the Fala map, in a way, and it's quite diverse. I mean, it has many layers. It's not our build projects, because all of our projects are more or less in Portugal, I think, but this is also the map of our lectures, exhibitions, collaborators, so it's spreading a bit, and it's also a nice moment, to track all this down. This is another exercise that we are doing at the moment. I was already telling you that we are, starting to see also certain themes when we design our facades, our elevations, and we are also right now, doing the workshop in Venice, and the workshop in Venice is also about studying the facade, and we sort of defined four categories for these elevations, and one of them is about grids, and this is a good example of the grid facade. Then another one is about sort of canvases, when you have the white wall, and then you have this set of carefully placed elements, and yeah, this would be a good example. Then another category was about patterns, and clearly this is the one, and the last one is the best one. It's about face facades, and we also have a couple of these here. And now the layer of, let's say, context and Portugal. This is the image of the city today, and if you look carefully, these white arrows, they are marking all the construction site cranes, so the city is really being, rebuilt, and yeah, it's a bit scary, and it's being rebuilt, in a different kind of, in a weird kind of way, because it's a lot about, keeping this nice image of this old city center. So you often see the side when the facade wall is kept as it is, and then behind they just built a new kind of structure. And yeah, the other case is when they build a new building that is trying to disguise itself, that is trying to look as an old one. And I think for us this is also a crucial point, because we were never interested, let's say, in this story about street elevations, and for us it was more about the back facades. And in the beginning, this facade, for instance, it seemed a bit ridiculous for us, because it will never be seen from the street, and we thought that it will only be seen by these 4 people who will be living in this building. But then we were taking pictures, and we, sort of going around the neighborhood, and we realized that this facade, it's almost, it's almost becoming the kind of, painting for neighbors to look at. And we are, I think we are excited, and we find it interesting that there is this, secondary layer of Porto, which is sort of invisible for, let's say, for tourists, which is invisible from the street. And this is the layer, for us, this is the layer of these, back facades that are changing, and nobody knows them. It's, the silent kind of revolution that is happening there. Now I'm going to show a few of our latest projects, and I will just quickly talk about them. So this was the old building, and this side is not really in the city center. It's a bit an industrial kind of area. And we built a new residential block there, which is a very complex kind of project, and it is also one of our first projects of this scale. It's a residential block, and it has 15 apartments, and as you can see, it has 2 levels. This is the roof plan, and it's also a very relevant kind of plan in this project. And the plan seems like extremely complex again, but this complexity comes actually, from our attempts to follow all the rules, because there were so many, and we needed to keep the outline of the building. Then we needed to also, I think, keep the number of the apartments. It was about figuring out all the parking spaces. Then you need to follow a certain area for a single apartment. Then it was about keeping also the total area. So it was really, in the beginning, 1 week of just working and doing all the calculations. And then we ended up with this kind of plan. But you can also see the logic here. You clearly perceive the grid, and then, then again, it's about finding exceptions in this grid. And for us, let's say the very idea of this project is about creating 15 apartments, and all of them are different. And there is a very normal kind of apartment which just has 1 level, but then there are some apartments that has these, weird kinks, and these kinks, they come from the intersection with the staircase, or this is simply the bathroom. Then there are a few apartments that take, the double height, because we had the space, and we could not make more apartments, so it was having a lot of space, and we used this as a chance to add, let's say, another layer of complexity to this project. And then you have also these weird kinds of ceilings that on the top level, they are becoming roof terraces. So these are very schematic images of all the apartments, and you can see that we always do the image, looking at the facade and then looking at the inside wall, and all of them are different. But at the same time, when you look at these collages, you see that they still, again, it's about having the same element or the same material, and trying to find a different expression for them. And we have a flying column in one of the apartments. So it's a lot about having this consistency, having also a rigid set of rules maybe, but then trying to find exceptions in this system. We have another 2 projects that are being built at the moment, and these are 2 houses, and for us this is probably one of our favorite typologies to work with. And these houses, in a way, they are the opposite of each other, because it was also about working with the client and solving the issue of how you organize the space, how you again divide public from private. And in this case, the main space is sort of the subtraction with all the bedrooms. The house is almost finished, and the other house was dealing with the very idea of houseness, because the client, they came to us asking for a house that will look like a house, and then we realized that they simply want a sloped roof. So working on this house was for us a lot about, again, solving the outside expression. And the 4 elevations of this house, they were really, these white canvases, and then it was again, defining the element on this canvas. And for instance, here we have the blue chimney, which sort of marks the facade that is facing the main street that is there. And then in this case, we introduced, this blue door because it's an entrance facade, and then there is the concrete beam on top. So again, it's an exercise in composition, I think. This is the project that I also showed before with the grid facade, and right now it's already finished and photographed, I think. This project is also an important point because it's one of our public commissions, which almost never happens. And this was a competition, and at the time it was a relevant project because I think it's an exhibition pavilion, and we ended up, building this little temple, and at the time it was a sum up, let's say, of all our obsessions, of everything that was going on at the office. And I think you can already spot, the elements that are repeating. You have the marble circle that is always on top. Then you have the blue cornice. There are, let's say, themes at the office, and we are trying to keep the track of them. And we just want to see how it goes. This is another crazy project that we have right now. This is really a tiny, tiny house outside of Porto, and in this case, it was a renovation, and it was a struggle because we needed, to fit the staircase in there and the bathroom, and then after doing so many options, we ended up doing this. And this is ridiculous because the tower, the new additional tower, it basically has the bathroom and the shower. So I think this project will like the simple fact that such insignificant program has such proud presence, and we also wanted to make it clearly different from the building that was already there. So we also applied a weird kind of pattern with pink triangles. I don't know, because why not? And the tower is already there, and the client is a bit scared, although excited at the same time, I think. This is actually one of the projects that I was working on right before coming here. And this project is literally about designing a new face. This is an old factory, and this is sort of the side facade, but then the client wanted to make this the main facade because he needed to, to make a face for this building, because there are clients coming and there has to be some kind of statement there. So after doing so many tests, we ended up having this. And this is not just a wall, it also has a volumetric expression, let's say, because inside this wall we have the staircase, the elevator, and the circulation lobby, because it was about connecting all the 3 levels. But yeah, we ended up doing, and it's a textile factory, so we ended up playing with this, idea of having a pattern, and this is actually a wall that is covered with white tiles, but then, we have these dots of black marble that are there, and and we have a tree on top. And as a conclusion, one of our also latest and one of the very exciting projects is the project of our new office, because I think in September we will finally move from this tiny little room. And this is also a renovation. We did the project when we will have an office on the ground floor, and then then Philip and Anna will be living on top of that, and finally we will have also a proper place, let's say, and a face. This is the facade as it is right now. And this image is, it's about the endless process of making architecture, about selecting your references, about, the idea of architect as a curator, and this is us struggling on a daily basis, let's say. This is the selection of our projects, everything that we have so far, and I don't know if we are still naive, let's say, maybe not, but I think we are good still at not being serious and boring. So we are still trying to have fun in a different way. This is the collage of all the Fala collaborators that we gave as a present to Philip last year, and this is it.